Hey everybody, welcome to Contribute. Let's give yourselves a hand. My name's Todd Barr. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at GitLab. And how many of you, like me, this is your first Contribute? Like a lot of people. More than half the room, to be more precise. And how many of you, this is your first time in New Orleans? Awesome. Well, this is a great city, and we're going to have a lot of fun this week. New Orleans is the home of beignets and chicory coffee and the New Orleans Saints. Any Saints fans in here? All right, Drew Brees. Sazeracs, which is one of my favorite cocktails. And, of course, Mardi Gras. And we had a great band today who, I'm sure they do a lot during Mardi Gras. New Orleans is also the home of jazz music. Do we have any jazz fans in the house? Okay. One of the things I love about jazz music is that it's made up of contributions from people and cultures around the world, specifically West Africa, African American, and even European band culture. And so they kind of merge those things together into something that's, completely new and different. And it also iterates. So jazz gets better and different over time as more people contribute to it. And even when you're playing jazz, you're often adding new people to the mix. So people can contribute real time. If you've heard any improvisational jazz, it's exciting and interesting. Sounds kind of a lot like GitLab to me, and a lot like what we're doing here. So Herman, would you mind coming up for a minute? I met Herman a little earlier. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Here's a mic.
Thank you.
Yep. So Herman, tell us a little bit about your band. Where are y'all from? Obviously, New Orleans.
We're from
almost.
here in New Orleans. So we met in high school and we continued after. Most of these guys are from New Orleans, except for one. It just happens that way.
Well, at GitLab, we like to say everyone can contribute.
Okay.
So I don't know, would you mind if I played a song with you guys?
What instrument do you play?
I played trumpet.
Where is it?
Oh, I happen to have brought a trumpet. It's right here. Yeah. So Saints, send the Saints Go Marching In. Will that work?
You want to play Saints Go Marching In?
Yeah, I do.
That's my favorite song.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite songs too.
Guys, he wants to play with us.
Yeah, come on up,
Come
guys.
on.
Yep. Get this out of the way here. I'll put it right here. I really want to do it in the key of C. Can you do that? No? What key do you play it in? Oh. All right, we'll do it. We'll try it. All right, ready?
1, 2.
Marching in, oh, when the Saints go marching in, well, I want to be in that number when the Saints go marching Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Awesome. So thank you for indulging me. That's actually been kind of a bucket list item for me. So we're good. Thank you, GitLab, for that. Before we get going, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. So we want this to be a safe and fun and awesome event for everyone. So just a few things. First of all, I want to thank the team. So let's just give Kirsten, Lauren, Emily, where are you? Stand up. There they are. Kirsten, obviously, who's been leading this effort, tireless work, and then Lauren, who's been here a couple of months, has been stepping in, and Emily and the whole team, and then a lot of you making up the crew. So if you're on the crew, please stand up. Okay. So in Mardi Gras, there's a thing called the crew that's usually a social organization that sets up the parades and the balls. So that's why they're called the crew. If you have any questions, start with the crew first, and they'll direct you to wherever you need to go. To be safe, to have fun, anything you need, ask the crew, and they'll at least know where to get the information. And don't forget the mobile app, where you have all the schedule and that type of information. Security. So we have Brian, who's our security person who's here. And this is a great town, but we really want you to be safe. Stay together, please. Get a buddy if you're going to go out and go somewhere. If you want to go for a morning walk, make a new friend and go on the walk together. So just like any city, we want to be careful. We want you to return home safely. If you see something, say something, and there's contact information for security in the app. You can find me. You can find your crew. If you see something, please do that. Don't hesitate. This is a work event. Please socialize. That's what this is about. It's about having fun, mainly. But don't be that person. So, and if you see a friend of yours being that person, help them to not be that person and take them away and help them to be safe. The other thing is you signed a code of conduct when you checked in. And it's a code of conduct that's used at many other events. And we take this seriously. Everybody should feel welcome. Everybody should feel safe. And so in your words and how you're treating people, even in how you're interacting with them physically, if they have a hug thing on their badge, you can give them a hug, but if not, fist bump is perfect. So please respect people's space and the code of conduct. And if you have any questions or concerns, or if you've witnessed anything, please reach out to Carol, who is our People Ops leader. And then the last thing is social media. So how many of you saw the social media board that we have out there? So when you actually tweet or whatever social media that you choose, there's hashtag GitLab contribute. You can @GitLab. And then we'd also love to see your content from all of your social media. One question about that or concern is, and I have teenagers who they're like, don't post anything of me on social media ever. Please ask other people's consent before you post a picture of them, just so that we're being respectful for people's privacy. And remember that you're representing the brand when you're posting on social media. So that's it. I think I've covered everything I need to cover. So now let's really get started with contribute. So. If you want to be part of something, everything.
One of the best things that you could tell somebody about working at GitLab is really that you'll have the opportunity to make a difference. Whatever you're passionate about, there's a space for you to push that forward.
We're trying to build a product that everyone in an organization can contribute to and use. We want anybody to be able to contribute to our product development.
It's easy to say everyone can contribute, but without the right tool to make it happen, it's very difficult. People can contribute their thoughts and ideas and feedback. You're empowered.
First time I saw GitLab, actually, it was 2012. I joined the core team, which consists of top contributors. And then there was a summit. I got to talk with Sid. I told him my ideas and how we can improve it. And he offered me a job, actually. That's my way into GitLab.
The culture of iteration makes it very easy to actually just do what you already know what to do.
No matter who you are, where you come from in the company, you have a say. You're empowered to step up and say, this needs to be changed. I want to change this on the website, or this about the product, or about a process within your team.
Being here and talking to all angles and all levels of people, it's clear that everybody's on board and everybody in the company believes in what's going on.
We want everyone to contribute to GitLab as a software product, but we also want everyone to contribute to our organization. I'm very happy when I see like a merge request coming that changes something in the company that's not from a team member. It's from someone that follows us, that cares about us, that wants to improve something in our organization.
As a founder of a startup, I've been studying the GitLab handbook as if it was like doctrine. We've learned a lot, we've copied shamelessly from it.
People working together has always been the most powerful way to get stuff done. That has been true for 50,000 years or so. So I don't know why more people don't do it.
We have found bugs and we've submitted patches upstream and so in that way we think of ourselves as part of that community.
Having GitLab operate in the community environment where people are teaching each other how to use things, that community part is the best part of GitLab that we've seen in a long time from productivity tools perspective.
We would like to help you simplify your tool chains, get rid of all the plugins, driving your teams insane.
4 years ago when we started with GitLab, we chose them for the best of breed. We looked at how we could improve our current tool chain, and that's where GitLab fitted right in.
You have an intimate relationship with your customers, you're listening to them. I mean, that much is very, very clear.
I hope we can actually reach there and make contributions and build something to a place where it's easy to create, yeah?
Thank you. Welcome everyone to contribute. It's great to see this filled room. It is awesome to see that every 9 months we almost double the company. I think I want to talk a bit today about all remote and how our values enable all remote. And I should stop holding the antenna of the clicker because I'm a really bad antenna myself. So this is the 7th summit. And you can see the progression. The first time it was like 6 people. With the company was only a few people. We had some significant others that came along. We're now 2 orders of magnitude bigger than that. It's amazing to see, and the time span in which that happened is way, way shorter than for most other companies. And it's cool to see. There's a different logo for every event. It's been cool to see like every event kind of we embrace the locality. We go on excursions, and it's not only discovering new people but also a new culture in a different part of the world. This is the first contribute. Until today, they've been called summits. And we changed the name because we want to remind everyone of our mission. Our mission is everyone can contribute. And it goes for 3 things. That goes for digital products. GitLab allows you to collaborate on digital products, on software, writing books. And I think there will be more things in the future that people use GitLab for. But we also allow people to contribute back to GitLab, the product. Every month, we have more than 100 improvements from the wider community. And this month, the last release, we had 195 contributions by the wider community. So maybe give a small round of applause for all the people that aren't here but have contributed. We are an all-remote organization, and we started that way out of necessity, but also because we wanted everyone in the world to be able to contribute to GitLab on an equal footing. Sometimes people at GitLab talk about the community. And I don't like that, and I don't think we should do that, because we're part of it. And that's the great thing, we're on equal footing. There's no headquarter. People coming to my living room are mostly pretty disappointed about not a lot of people being there. We have a cute cat, and we've got 2 CEO shadows now, so it's getting better. But everyone on equal footing, I think, is a really important part. That's why we got 195 contributions, and because of the community team's work, and Ray and everyone else, but also because we invite people in. And when we started, remote was the only option. We couldn't afford anything else. Dimitri started GitLab, and I only saw it a year later, and I sent him an email, like, hey, do you mind if I start GitLab.com without you? And his response was, of course not. Go for it, make it more popular. I'm so glad that you're creating awareness for GitLab. So that should be our attitude every time someone wants to contribute something to GitLab or use GitLab in one of their projects. Even if they compete with us as a company, we should be a great steward of the project. And then we got into business together a year later because Dimitri tweeted out to the entire world, I want to work on GitLab full-time. Maybe a reminder to kind of say what you want. Sometimes you might just get it. I sent him an email like, okay, how much do you need to work on GitLab full-time? I went to the local Western Union money station and said, I want to wire some money to the Ukraine. And they said, do you know this person, or is this someone you met over the internet? And we'll see later in Hayden's presentation what my mental image of Dimitri at that time was. I can assure you it was pink, very pink. But for the second time, I made a really good call of forming a relationship with someone I met over the internet. The first one was my wife, here in the audience today, 19 years and counting. And the second big one was Dimitri. And our third employee was also born out of necessity. I couldn't get any Ruby on Rails programmers because we didn't have the money. So the idea was that I would teach Marin how to do Ruby on Rails in exchange for him working for GitLab. And that's been a great collaboration ever since. When we got a bit of money, after Y Combinator, we raised some funds, and the advice was, look, you should, this remote thing, it works for engineering. No one's been able to make it work for finance, for sales, for marketing, for people ops. It's not possible. Just get an office. And we're in the business of boring solutions, so we got an office. And turns out, our finance, our people ops, our marketing people, our sales people are maybe a bit better than the average ones because they are basing GitLab. They are making merge requests. Actually, we had an executive offsite the last couple of days before. You know who made the most merge requests during that offsite? Todd and McBride, the marketing and sales people. Not the engineering people, the marketing and sales people. So it is possible, but the first one to embrace remote is Hayden. Hayden, if you can stand up. Hayden's right back there. And what he did very effectively is not showing up to the office. For 2 days, he showed up to the office. He came from Alameda. We got close to a BART station, so he would have an easy commute, but it's still like almost an hour-long commute. And it just wasn't necessary to be there. And I think that's why people show up to the office, like not because they want to commute, but because otherwise they miss out on information, on career opportunities. And if you provide them to another avenue, people stop showing up. And that's what kept happening, and we've embraced that now. And remote is not very easy to do. There's a lot of different cultures. There's a lot of different people involved with GitLab. Over 2,000 people contributed to the project. And we're now showing the world the future of work. I'm seeing some YC startups starting now that say, we're an all-remote company. There's momentum building because it's unaffordable to have everyone in San Francisco. And we could guide the rest of the world. Just like Salesforce became known for no software, a SaaS delivery method, we can become known for teaching the world how to do all remote. There's so much upside to it. Remote forces you to do the things you have to do anyway, much earlier and much better. I think every single person here has a job description, and it at least includes your responsibilities and what you have to do. And that's not normal at a chaotic startup. There's lots of things, how we work, how we communicate, that are not normal. Having a Google Docs shared with everyone for every meeting you're in is not normal. That's not the norm at other companies. So we got that operational excellence much earlier. We're more efficient. We don't have to pay for an office. And that's what allows us to do things like this. This event would be the first thing you'd cut in any company. Because guess what? Productivity is down 50% this month. In sales, in engineering, we're not doing anything this week. Many people, we're flying in and out. We get sick from all, so please fist bump. But people take some extra holidays, which we totally encourage to see this beautiful part of the US. But it's not a direct thing. It's something we invest in building trust and a feeling of belonging to each other. So by saving on offices, we can dedicate that cost. And there's some board members here. Please tell Sue and Bruce how much you like this event and that they shouldn't cut it. But luckily, in the end, we're in charge of our own destiny. If we meet our IACV goals, we can have this event, whatever the board members say. And the last thing is opportunity. There's so many skilled people from all around the world. I was walking up to here with Igor, who joined us from Belarus. There's talented people all across the world. And a good example is Camille. Camille, out of nowhere, made a better version of GitLab Runner, greatly improving GitLab CI. And he just sent it to us. And we're like, this is so much better than what we have. We'll make this official. By the way, do you want to come work here? He said yes. He joined the company. He said, well, we should integrate GitLab version control and GitLab CI. And me and Dimitri said, are you out of your mind? Nobody does that. Separate concerns, small things that work together, we've integrated them so well, there will be no upside. And he said, well, at least it's more efficient. And we did it. And it turns out that it was a much better experience. And we stumbled across this secret of a single application for the entire DevOps lifecycle. And we doubled down on that. We went beyond CI. We went to CD. We went to monitoring, securing, and defending applications. No one is doing that because no one had a Camille that showed that early. We're a couple of years ahead, and we see the rest of the industry following. Yes, they're doing CI now. They'll be doing CD and monitoring and security, but by that time, we'll have the best single application for the entire DevOps lifecycle. Apart from attracting great people, there's also some upside for the environment. Not commuting, not hauling yourself, mostly in a car, to the office, saves a lot of emissions. Also, you don't need an office. You don't need to construct that. You don't need to maintain and cool that. One of the biggest things is the upside for people not working at the company. If you spend less time commuting, you have more time for your family and for your friends. And that's one of the most important things. And having that compatibility is great. The link for the source is in the notes if you want to explore it. But apart from getting more time in your life, there's also more flexibility. Hopefully you feel empowered to just if your day doesn't go the way it's supposed to go, to take some time off, to tell your team members, look, I'm having something else. I'm going to do something else today. I need to take care of something or someone. And I think as a company, we've been great at stimulating that. And we've been great about not monitoring people's input, how many hours they put in, but their output, and to give them that responsibility and flexibility for their life. If you want managers of one, you got to treat them like managers of one. Then the last thing is the upside for the wider world, people not at the company. There's a lot of wealth being created in the Silicon Valley. But what if we can create that wealth not only there, but in many, many locations around the world? If you can work for a great, fast-growing startup without having to move there, I think that making the world slightly more equal is one of the great benefits of all remote. So, although all remote is great, it's not easy. And one of the hardest things is working across multiple time zones. I don't think we've cracked the code yet on Asia Pacific. I don't think that's a great experience at GitLab yet. I'm thinking about that. I'd love to talk with you if you're located in Asia Pacific, but time zones are hard. It's the end of distance, but not of time zones. But we have some things that make it easier to do remote work. And they correspond with some of our values. Iteration and transparency really allows you to work better remote. If you're remote, you want as few synchronous meetings as possible. You want to work asynchronous, being able to give each other feedback while not being online at the same time. One of the ways to do that is to take very small steps. If you take a small step, you don't have to know the exact direction you're going to go because you can adjust it later. If you take a small step, you don't have to involve a lot of people because you're not going to be very far away from what everyone else is doing. If you take a small step, you'll get feedback after that. So you don't need to unfold all kinds of scenarios. So doing a small thing is such an important way in which we prevent coordination. And coordination requires people to be in the same office, to be in the same time zone. So by taking small steps really, really quickly, we do much better there. We have some terms for that, like we have the minimum viable change, but we also have the DRI, the directly responsible individual. Everything we do, it should be clear who's the person who's going to make this decision. And it's going to be the person who has to do the work. And that person makes a decision, and maybe they'll not do what you ask them. So you might have provided input, and someone does something else. That is fine. We cannot go back and say, we want consensus, you have to convince everyone. No, we want people to take quick decisions. We're on exponential growth, and the most important thing to keep up with that is to take decisions as fast as possible. The biggest driver of our future success is our speed of decisions, not necessarily the quality of decisions. And I think our decisions get better if we get input from more people. So that's what we encourage. Do it out in the open, have an issue, let people chime in. The only way to get people to get people to open up and let people chime in is if they don't have to listen to each and every one of them. Because if you require that, they're going to stay under the radar. So very important. Everyone's invited to give an opinion, but one person decides, the person who's accountable for the end result. And then the other thing that makes it possible is transparency. If you record by default, if you put it in the handbook or you put it up on YouTube unfiltered, that makes it so much easier. As a sender, you only have to do it once, and you don't get a shoulder tap from, can you explain this to me now? And as a receiver, you get like the best version of something. You get the best version at the best time. A lot of companies, they scale and they say you cannot grow a company by more than 2x year over year. That breaks many companies. We're doing it, we've done it before. And we can do it because if you onboard, you don't have to shoulder tap 16 people to get all your information. It's in the handbook, it's in the onboarding. If we keep that up, we will be able to continue our growth rate and continue to have it make people effective really, really quickly. So we're transparent in a lot of ways. One of the ways is handbook first. So when you make a change at GitLab, you don't send an email, you don't create a presentation, you actually make the change in the handbook. And after that got merged, you present it to the company like, this is the change I made. The handbook is not some documentation after the fact. The handbook is the fact. That's the only way to make sure it's always up to date. And then the last thing is building trust and community, being able to relate to one another. Sending text messages back and forth in an issue is not a great way to form a connection and to have an understanding of the other person, the person on the other side. It's a good way to do functional stuff, but there is a place and a time for getting to know the other person. The better you know another person, the more likely you're going to have a positive interpretation of what they say. So it's very important to join group conversations, have coffee chats with people. We are remote, but we shouldn't be a lonely company. We are figuring this out. We've already established a lot of things that other companies are being inspired by, but we should keep that up, and we should teach the world how to do all remote. One of the things we're considering is a conference about all remote and being the leader there and showing other people how it's done. So please contribute to that. Please contribute to our handbook in the remote channel. And if you see something in the onboarding that wasn't great, know that most of the people going through that onboarding haven't done it yet. They will come in the next year. So please make that small improvement. Make the life a bit easier of the people coming after you. So please join me in being the best all-remote company. But for this week, we're going to be the best company in real life here in New Orleans. Because we know that in-person interaction can be very rewarding. We're not going to make you sit through a whole lot of presentations. We're going to do fun things, unstructured things. And what we ask of you is get to meet as many new people as possible here. Because that's what we are here for. Not talk to the people you always talk to, but to form those deeper connections with the rest of the company. I hope you do that, and I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you very much.
Wow. Everyone prepares you. There's a lot of folk out there.
Yeah,
Emily, this is a bit overwhelming.
I didn't know what 600 would look like. Wow, this is impressive.
I mean, it's a pretty distant memory from my first summit back then, when we were squeezing into this one Volkswagen car, 6 of us, and when Sid had to sit at the back seat, the 2-meter he is. So my name is Marin Jankowski. I'm the engineering manager for the delivery team. And
I'm Emily Kyle. I'm a manager for the corporate events team. And this is my 6th contribute.
Yes, mine is 7th officially. We have the one that is an unofficial summit, the one in Las Vegas. But you might hear about that a bit more. Not really sure. So 7th or 8th, depending on how you look.
Yeah, but someone once said that a year at GitLab is like dog years. So at this point, we're pretty tenured. So we're here to share a little bit of our experience with you and pro tips about how to get the most out of Contribute. That being said, we realized we weren't musically talented like Todd. So my initial suggestion of doing a rap to educate you, we had to skip that. So now we're going to do an acrostic for you of the best way to get the most out of Contribute.
Yes, and we'll start with curiosity. This is a very unique opportunity for everyone who joins. It is the first time that you're actually going to meet people that you work with. And in some cases, you've been probably working with them for like 6 to 9 months without actually meeting them. I worked with Sid for 3 months before actually going and meeting him in person. And that explained a lot of things. I think for him as well, by the way. This is the time for the curiosity to take the best of you. So I'm not sure if you're aware, there is 54 locations that people are coming from. Just think about that for a second. Where and when in life are you going to get that chance to discover different cultures? Discover how people function and think, and just based off the location they're coming from. So we have a person who is working with us that lives in the 9th smallest country in the world. How amazing is that? Like, try to find them and talk with them a bit to find out like how that actually looks.
Also, try to find out who used to be a fire breather.
Spoiler alert. We'll talk about that later. Find me later and I'll tell you all about it. So one other thing that you might have noticed in the Contribute channel is that a lot of flights got canceled, moved. This is normal. That happens all the time. So for me, a great opening is, how long did you take to get here? How many flights did you change? I'm sorry to say, you look a bit tired. Did you travel 48 hours, maybe? So,
great opener.
Yes, exactly. This is where you get the chance to connect to people, so be curious.
With that in mind, also be open-minded. There's a lot of things that might be outside your comfort zone, such as bubble soccer, but as you can see, even Sid leaned in, and he's upside down. I think that's the only time I've seen Sid upside down. But I remember, I think back to my first summit for Amsterdam. I'd been at the team a month, and I was reading through everybody's bios on the team page, and I think I was the only one whose bio didn't say I code for GitLab for fun. So needless to say, I thought I was gonna have nothing in common with anybody there. So I'm sitting alone one night, very nervous, and in the sequin blazer did not fit in at all. Everyone else is in t-shirts, and Marin comes up to me with this mystery liquid in a mason jar, and he says, "Don't smell it, just take a sip." And I was at a crossroads there. I was like, do I trust this random stranger? And I did, and it turns out it's this concoction that he makes with his father, and it was like a really nice way to cross the divide and like learn a little bit more about Marin, his culture, and his family. And I mean, now we're here today, so.
Yeah, that was a great event.
From what we can remember.
You can see, this is the picture from the first summit. This is me sitting between Sid and Jakob, by the way. At least that's how I felt. You are surrounded by these giants, but the important thing is that you want to network with everyone. Avoid targeting people. Just go with the flow, meet everyone that you can, and you will... The feeling of not belonging is going to disappear very soon. So one thing that I like to do, I don't know if you are like that, like me, but in the mornings, the only thing I see is coffee. So until I have a coffee in front of me, you can ask me anything you like, and most likely you're going to get it. So a good way of approaching people is randomly select a table that has people that you never talked with, sit down and eat. Conversation starts easily. For people who are not morning people, you can always do night events, and you don't have to drink. You can enjoy yourself differently as well. There is people organizing board games. There are always impromptu meetings. Check the channels for those type of events.
With that being said, there is so much information going around this week, and please take notes. Feel free to bring a notebook, have your laptop out, start an issue. Issues are the best way. Don't forget that we are still trying to work asynchronously. There are a lot of people who couldn't be here, so it is not rude at any time to be on your phone taking notes, because we want to capture all the learnings that we're getting here this week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just taking some notes. Most importantly, remember the brand. It is quite easy to forget that you are at a business event, like we said previously. Whether you wear the swag or not, it does not matter. Try to be the best self you can be, and we look for each other. So if you do see something, say something. If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, find an ambassador and speak to them.
Also, I know Sid said that everyone can contribute, but sometimes people need an invitation. So if you're standing in a group, please invite people in to talk to you or go reach out to a stranger. I've been very fortunate in my job to meet so many GitLabbers and also in my tenure. And I can tell you that everybody is so genuinely nice and friendly and helpful. I've never been so privileged to be around such a great group. So take advantage of it. This is a safe space.
I'll give you a couple of
Safe
seconds
space.
to unpack what's happening there. Be yourself. Be open. Most of you are sharing rooms with people that you haven't met before. This is a very good opportunity to get to know someone well, but even with that, it might be useful to just chat with the person you are in the room with, and set, I wouldn't call them boundaries, but some expectations maybe, because you will need time to unwind. And one way to do that is just chat with the person you're sharing your room with and get to know them a bit better so that you can actually be open about your own personality.
Maren stole my thunder a little bit with saying unwind, but I'll reiterate it. Basically, don't be myself or John. I'm in a bathrobe in the hallway of the hotel because I didn't take good enough care of myself. So remember, this is a long, long week. It's a lot of networking. Usually, I'm in my pajamas right now, so this is big. I understand it's tough, so really take care of yourself. Do whatever you need to do. Go to the gym, take a break. No one's going to be offended if you have to duck out on something.
And once you recharge your batteries, the best way to empty them again is talk to leadership. It is really important to know that you'll be shocked to find out they're also human. I was really, really surprised every time I spoke with some of them. You have minimum of one topic in common, and that is GitLab. If you do not know how to start, tell them about your favorite feature or the feature you want to see. And things are just going to start rolling. So you have one topic in common, use it.
And finally, educate. Fun fact, over 50% of people, this is their first summit. So everyone will have a little button and it'll let you know how many summits you've been to. If you see someone who has the number 1, share a story from a previous summit or something else you've learned. If we haven't covered everything in these 10 slides, please let them know. For example, we'd love to hear the story of the infamous fist bump. Ready? Oh. We'll keep iterating. I mean, it's been happening since what, the plague of 2017 it's Crete, so that's all in the handbook, but the history behind it's not. I think I was Typhoid Mary, so yeah.
So for those of you who do not know, after the Crete summit, almost everyone has gotten sick. So this is the reason why you should definitely fist bump.
Nailed it. And finally, the biggest thing, just have fun. Be relaxed, have fun. That's what we're all here for.
Exactly. Thank you.
So Maren, are we actually paying you now, or is Sid still teaching you stuff? Okay. That was awesome, and hopefully you have a better sense for what to do this week and how to do it. Now we want to go to a little history lesson. So since most of us are new, we thought we'd bring Hayden McKay up, who was our first sales hire and is still here, still hitting his number, and now runs the Western US Sales Enterprise team. So Hayden, come on up.
Here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up 3 very lovely girls. All of them had hair of gold, like their mother, the youngest one in curls. It's the story of a man named Brady who was busy with 3 boys of his own. They were 4 men living all together, yet they were all alone.
Here's the story of a tool named GitLab that is turning into something powerful. All of its contributors are from all over, and that's what makes it grow. I started joining GitLab's daily company call when everyone fit on one screen, just like the Brady Bunch. And whenever I described to friends and family back in Australia what it was like working on a fully distributed team, I'd start singing that theme song. The Brady Bunch was really big out there in the 80s, so they totally understood. Our bandwidth connection wasn't great back then, so that's why we got the blurry shot there. I was asked by the Contribute organisers to talk a little bit about the history of the company, but guess what? Like everything we do, it's documented right here. So rather than just walk you through the key moments in time, I thought I'd share or contribute a little bit more and share how a strong-held belief of mine has changed since joining the company. The belief that a thriving and vibrant company culture, indicative of high-performing teams, can only exist in an office. So quick audience poll. Hands up who started at GitLab in the last month. Okay, great. Leave your hands up. How about the last 3 months? Great. Leave your hands up. How about 6 months? Okay, great. If everyone just takes a look around and look at the ratio there, that growth rate has been going on for the last 5 years. Thanks, you can pop your hands down. Welcome to your first GitLab Summit. Hopefully I'll get to meet many of you this week. Last question. Hands up if GitLab is the first time that you've worked fully remote. Okay, so me too. This is my first fully remote position. So this is new to many of us. Dimitri started GitLab as a self-hosted Git repository management system in 2011. And open source the code, of course. Sid saw the open source project in 2012 and started offering GitLab as a service under what is now known as GitLab.com. In 2013, they paired up together with a handful of early engineers and released a set of paid features for on-premises installations and called it GitLab Enterprise. 2014, they incorporated in the Netherlands as GitLab BV as the backing entity behind the commercial operation of GitLab. I joined later that year as the first person outside Europe. And I'm not a developer, so I hadn't used the product before. So my impression of GitLab was limited to looking at the company website, reading the blog posts, the community forums, the team profiles, and what I discovered was after 10 years of working in an office for the same company, getting a look and feel or getting a feel for the next company was really important to me. I'd be curious to hear what people would imagine GitLab was if they saw these images back then. Back then, Git was becoming the most common version control system for managing source code because it was free, fast, and distributed. Free as in open source. And when it was combined with a user interface for collaborating on that source code, development velocity took a huge leap. But open sourcing that tooling on top of Git was definitely the way forward, and GitLab was it. Open source on open source. But what really impressed me about GitLab was the way that the open source project was being developed and stewarded. The core team's principles, the community of contributors and fans, and the monthly releases were all really positive signs, not to mention the really cool artwork. But I was a father of two living in an expensive city in the US, and it was risky to think about joining a bootstrap startup from Europe where I knew no one. But what I did know was that I had existing customers looking for this kind of technology. Everyone was becoming a software company, and all the competitors were all closed source. And so I was in, I wanted in. And so I reached out to Sid on LinkedIn and expressed my interest in joining the company. And Sid responded quickly and said, in transparency, to be transparent, I'm coming to San Francisco next week to meet with your CEO. I'm like, I had no idea. What didn't I know? I thought I put my foot in it. And I replied and said, okay, if there's any interest in a conversation after your meeting, just get back to me and let me know, and left it at that. And he responds again and says, well, to be completely transparent, now that you've contacted me, I feel obliged to inform your CEO that someone from his company's reached out to me about working for GitLab. I'm like, I'd been at this company for 10 years. It was only 250 people. It wouldn't be hard to figure out who it was. So I replied and said, okay, understood, but please don't let them know it's someone in sales or a male or female. And he agreed. So for the next few weeks, I had to tiptoe around the office, as you can imagine. We obviously did reconnect, and when I told my former VP I was leaving for GitLab, the first thing he said was, so it was you! My son was 6 at the time, and he'd been into my former company many, many times. He loved the pinball machine, the foosball table, the big screen theatre with the lounges, the free soda machines, and jars of peanut M&Ms everywhere. And I did too. But explaining, and he knew my colleagues, they knew him, so explaining who I was now working for was also limited to walking him through the website and explaining how we used technology like video conferencing and GitLab itself to collaborate. He was shy at first, but he started saying hi on the team call occasionally, and he loved the early artwork, as you see there. He's now 11, or he turns 11 this year, and he now fits into my t-shirts. And I just taught him how to break down a school project into small chunks using a GitLab issue board. I didn't meet anyone from GitLab until 6 weeks after I joined, when Sid came to San Francisco to visit some existing and prospective customers. And it wasn't until 5 months after starting that I got to meet the rest of the team for Y Combinator. Y Combinator is the pretty well-known startup incubator from Silicon Valley that we made it into in the winter 2015 batch. So the first time I met the team, there was already a foundation of mutual trust and respect, so things were really easy. We'd been working together for 5 months. But Y Combinator was the first time that all the team had spent an extended period of time together. So there'd be 6 engineers from various European countries living together away from friends and family in the USA for 3 months of intense hacking. I did spend the odd night there on the sofa, usually after dinner and drinks, but mostly I lived at home about 45 minutes away. I'd drive down about once a week, usually bring donuts or beer or sometimes both, just to keep the team motivated. They were working really, really hard. I remember looking around the house of, laptops, chargers, cables, suitcases, and a fridge full of nothing but meat, cheese, and beer, thinking that this was a true startup. One night after our first live training or webcast with the Platzi training platform, we celebrated back at the house in Mountain View, and I'll never forget Dimitri coming out of the kitchen, shaking his head after drinking his first beer and saying, I do not like the APIs. We laughed so hard about that. The India Pale Ale, the IPA, is my favourite beer. But that's a really simple example of the diverse nature of the team, and it just brought us all a little bit closer together. Sid bought the boat, as it was known. It seated 8 people uncomfortably. And after a couple of months, Sid decided that the team needed a road trip. But after a couple of months of dorm-style living and hacking, the team needed a little bit of motivation to hit the road altogether. And as luck would have it, one of the team was returning back to the Netherlands to get married after Y Combinator. And so a bachelor party it was. It had to be a surprise. And so we decided to fake a Jira server outage at a customer in Los Angeles so we could get our bachelor in the car. And we would all drive down in solidarity to make this special customer a GitLab issue user. It's typically 5 hours from San Francisco to Los Angeles, which is kind of on the limit for 8 people with an average height of 6'1". We took turns driving and sitting in the back. It was pretty tight back there. And we stopped for gas a lot. I think the boat must have had a hole in it. And someone happened to spot us on the freeway. Someone spotted us on the freeway and tweeted a picture of us, which we all thought was pretty amazing. I mean, what are the chances a fan of GitLab would spot us on a California freeway in early 2015? But that was confirmation of how widespread GitLab already was at that time. I was doing a shift at the wheel later in the day, and I could see a bachelor in the back seat texting his fiancée back in the Netherlands and kind of looking out the window, and there wasn't a house in sight, it was just desert. And the sun's starting to set, and finally he pipes up and says, hey guys, we're going to be in LA soon, right? We've been driving for like 7 hours. It was time to break the news. We were headed to Vegas for his bachelor party. The look on his face and his reaction are absolutely priceless, and I'm pretty sure we have that recorded in the history of GitLab somewhere. That was true collaboration and results right there, just without the transparency. But we did get to see a customer while we were there, so not quite all that non-transparent. That road trip for me was, in a way, my first GitLab summit. It wasn't an official summit, but for me it was, and I think for a lot of others as a team it also was. And it was simply just a time to get to know your colleagues and have some fun together. We all shared rooms to save a little money, but mostly just to make use of the time together. And I roomed with Sid. And after a couple of nights, I realized Sid didn't want to just create a great product and a successful business. He wanted to create a great place to work, a place where everyone was welcome, a place where everyone could contribute. And that was just like the open source project itself, and also what the product itself enabled. It's a collaboration platform after all. And that was the thing that we all really shared in common. Those early days solidified GitLab's open source stewardship principles as the values behind the company. And the first official iteration was drafted and published on the website shortly after, or just before Y Combinator ended. Shortly after Y Combinator, Sid drafted the remote manifesto, and that was kind of an extension of our core values. But I still felt that in order to create a true thriving company culture, you needed an office. How could you possibly create one virtually? 2015 was the breakthrough year for GitLab. On the product side, as you heard earlier, we integrated GitLab CI into the product itself, into GitLab itself, and that gave us a real differentiator and planted the seed for a single application. Our annual recurring revenue had gone from less than $1 million to $3 million, and after their seed round investment, Costler Ventures stepped up again later that year to lead our A round investment with another $4 million. And that meant the real hiring would start. By October 2015, the company had basically tripled to 35 people. And although Sid had rented an apartment in San Francisco with an open floor plan that was conducive to co-working, we all still pretty much work remotely. We'd go in occasionally for the odd co-working day. For new hires that year, the 2 weeks that we spent in Amsterdam for the O'Reilly Open Source Summit and then our own summit was Vegas all over again, a time to get to know your colleagues and have some fun. The Austin Summit was only 8 months later, and we completely doubled in size and more than doubled to about 85 people. The sales team were now closing 6-figure deals with some of the most well-known companies in the world. Our values had evolved to be more encompassing and became part of every new hire's onboarding. But still no office mandate, just the odd co-working day. Revenue funding and hiring continued in 2016. Our customers were loving the product, adopting it faster than what they'd expected. Our investors were happy with our performance and started to believe that hypergrowth was in fact possible with a remote workforce. After 2 years of living it, I started to think so too. Everyone on the core team, or everyone on our team, the core team, customers and open source users were really loving and embracing how we worked out in the open. And other startups started to look at GitLab as a model company for the future. In January 2017 at the GitLab Summit in Cancun, Mexico, one of our investors and board members addressed the roughly 200 strong team by then and said, every one of you has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I don't think he was talking about the opportunity to contribute to the growth of the company and grabbing market share and revenue growth and career growth. I think he was also talking about the opportunity to contribute to the future of work itself, for ourselves and everyone else. First, by building the greatest collaboration platform for distributed teams building digital products, and second, by being open, transparent, and inclusive. Leading up to our Series C investment in October 2017, that was led by Google Ventures, we beat out GitHub for our first $1 million deal with a well-known software company from Silicon Valley. A huge factor in the decision was the fact that we were open source and iterating so quickly. And winning that deal gave every sales team member by then real confidence that we could actually beat out what was considered then as our #1 competitor. The Greece Summit was 2 weeks after the C round investment, and we'd reached about 250 employees. And during his keynote address, Sid said, we're growing so fast because we're open and inclusive. And that was kind of exactly what we needed to hear, because earlier that month there were some pretty tragic events in Las Vegas. Greece was the first time I'd really seen how embracing a set of shared values while working remotely can really build a true company culture. When our Series D investment closed in September 2018, it was $100 million, that was confirmation that our open core model and fully distributed workforce could in fact scale. And it was also confirmation that a single application for the entire software development and operations lifecycle was exactly what the market was looking for. The summit in Cape Town came just after the Series D announcement and was the first summit I'd missed since joining the company, and I suffered some serious FOMO, fear of missing out. I followed the Slack posts, I watched the live broadcasts, but it was sort of painful not being there, not seeing my friends and colleagues of 4 years. So here's what all that looks like from a sales perspective. Absolutely phenomenal, from less than $1 million ARR to over 50 million in the space of 5 years. But by no means has it been easy. Everyone's worked extremely hard, so thank you to everyone for your contributions. You can all take some credit for this success. I've interviewed a lot of people over the last year, and one of the first questions I ask is, so why leave and why GitLab? And 9 out of 10 people say that our values and company culture are one of the main reasons they want to join. So if we continue embracing these values that stem from our open source roots, we'll follow that red curve and hit our growth targets and still maintain a great place to work with a thriving culture. And everyone here gets to contribute to both. So thank you and have a great week.
We have an open community and everyone can contribute. And so we wanted to invite a guest today who really embodies community and collaboration outside of our walls, our virtual walls, I guess. So we invited Ariel Waldman. She's an author. She's the founder of spacehack.org. And she's participated in multiple global collaboration opportunities for science and space, and she's an advisor to NASA today. So I'd like to introduce Ariel, and she's going to speak to us for a little while.
Hello. Hey. Nice to meet all of you here, actually in person. This is really awesome. I've loved everything so far, and just, yeah, how open and welcome and nice everyone is. It's just lovely. So I wanted to start with a video that I've recently really fallen in love with. It's this video here. And what I love about this is just how incredible these pixels are. What you can see in this video here is actually a bunch of 4 pixels actually kind of going around a star in the center. That star in the center has been blacked out so it doesn't blind you, but those 4 pixels going around that star, those are 4 planets in an entirely different solar system, not our own. Those are 4 planets 129 light years away that are going around another star. These planets are known as exoplanets or extrasolar planets, which just means that they're planets around another star. Why this is incredible is because there's only a dozen or so images and videos of planets around other stars to date. We actually don't see many of them. We've detected a lot of them, but we don't see a lot of them. And I really like this idea that you can actually sort of see the unseeable or make visible the invisible. So another example of a photo that I really adore is this one here. And I love this because you look at it and it's very artistic and beautiful. It looks like a painting. But what you're actually looking at here is your own home. This is the Milky Way galaxy. This is what our own galaxy looks like. And this image really brought it to light for the first time. If you've been in a very dark area of the world, maybe you've been lucky enough to see the Milky Way galaxy stretch out over your head. But for the most part, what you're actually seeing is a lot of space dust and space gas, stuff that sort of gets in the way of us actually being able to see what our own galactic home looks like. And so this image here, produced around 2008, by one of my favorite space probes, the Spitzer Space Telescope, uses infrared to see past all that space dust and space gas and get you actually a really gorgeous image of what our own home looks like. Another favorite image of mine that I always love showing is this image here. How many of you have seen this image before? Few of you. Okay, so this is a badass image because this image taken from another one of my favorite space probes, Voyager 1, which is going to the outer reaches of our solar system and beyond. This image is Earth, as seen from about 4 billion miles away. That tiny little speck of a pixel there, that's Earth, 4 billion miles away. So I always like to say that's where you can find me if you need me. Pretty easy. But why I like images and videos like these is because they show us how space exploration often changes our view of ourselves and our place in the universe. But most of my work focuses on changing how we view space exploration and science. And even though I work in space exploration and science, that's not where I started. That's not my background. I actually went to art school. My degree is in graphic design, and space and science weren't really on my radar. Not because I didn't like them, but because, well, it just wasn't really in the career path I saw for myself, and I didn't see how there was a way to contribute to space or science if I was interested in art and graphic design. So that all sort of changed a few years ago when I was watching a documentary called When We Left Earth. If you haven't seen this documentary, I definitely recommend it. It's a documentary about the early days of NASA and how they were trying to figure out how to send people into space for the very first time. And I found this documentary so incredibly inspiring that I decided to send someone at NASA, someone I had never met, an email saying that I was a huge fan of what they were doing, and if they ever needed someone like me, someone completely without a background in science, that I was here. I didn't really expect to hear back from that email. I was maybe a fan of NASA for all of a week at that moment. But serendipitously, I was able to get a job at NASA from that email. And I felt like this. It changed my life, and it changed my perspective, and it changed really just about everything for me. And so I wanted to share with all of you a quick clip from this documentary that sort of better explains just why I found it so inspiring.
To beat the Soviets, NASA must launch a man into Earth orbit. Only rockets can go fast enough.
We knew nothing about rocketry, we knew nothing about spacecraft, we knew nothing about orbits.
I saw a lot of rockets launched. I'd say that somewhere between 30 and 40% of them failed. A lot of them came up off the pad and went the opposite direction. Some of them got halfway off the pad and blew up. Some of them got to 10,000 feet and turned the other way and blew up.
The whole thing crumbled and blew up. It looked like an atomic bomb went off almost over our heads.
We got a big kick out of watching the Mercury astronauts. It was great looking at their eyes.
We're looking at this thing and looking at each other and deciding we want to go back and talk to the engineers a little more before we go further.
And so that's what I love so much about this documentary. It actually always reminds me of this image here. I was watching this and saying to myself, well, I don't know anything about rockets or orbits or spacecraft. You heard them talking about how they didn't know anything about it at the time. And so I was saying, well, I don't know anything about space exploration and I want to work at NASA. That sounds amazing. And so I got that chance, and it really changed my perspective of NASA from being a bunch of rocket scientists to being a bunch of space hackers. That NASA and all the people involved in the space race were people who were having to figure it out as they went along. They were space hackers in a sense. And I really just loved and cherished this chance to really change my perspective. It all sort of centered around the concept that doing something changes how you see it. So actually doing science and doing space exploration actively changes your relationship with it from something of observation to something of active contribution. And so while I was at NASA, I got to learn really amazing things. It was like getting paid to go to school. I got to learn about dark matter and robots and all this great stuff. But one of the more important things that I ended up learning at NASA was that I didn't need to be an astronaut in order to explore space. Not only did I learn that I didn't need to be an astronaut to explore space, but I learned that I didn't even need to work at NASA to explore space. And so I left. And I created spacehack.org, which is a directory of ways for anyone to contribute to space exploration with or without a formal science background. These were a lot of different things that I had learned while I was working at NASA, that there were actually a lot of ways to contribute, but they were buried deep in government websites or difficult to understand, and so I really wanted to open this up to everyone. I launched spacehack.org over 10 years ago now, and in some ways, space exploration has changed in the last 10 years, and in other ways, it hasn't. And one of the things that I really like, though, is the fact that there are still so many new and different and weird and fun ways to contribute to science and space exploration that people often don't think about. One example that I love is this one here. This was a group of people who went all over the Earth to catalog microbes that live on the surface of the Earth. So they went all over the Earth to deserts and oyster ponds and just kind of anywhere that was on the surface of the Earth, and cataloged the microbes, the microscopic organisms that existed there, the shape and the size, but also importantly, the color. So they created sort of this color catalog of all the life on the surface of the Earth. And what I find so cool about this is that if you remember back to the very first video I showed all of you, of those exoplanets going around that star, sometime in our lifetime, we are going to get better images of those exoplanets. And when we get better images of those exoplanets, we're going to see what colors they are. And when we see what colors they are, we could use something like this as sort of like an alien Pantone guide to hold up next to it and sort of wonder, well, maybe these microbes could be causing this color on another planet. And this is what I love, because this is something that artists or designers or really just people who look at the world differently could create. And it actively helps us search for life elsewhere in the universe, which is just amazing to me. I love it. So I got really obsessed with this idea of kind of exploring space from Earth. Because, well, I've interviewed a lot of astronauts in my career, and I've learned that maybe going into space might not be for me. I get motion sick really easily, and I just don't like throwing up on the job. It's just not my favorite thing to do. So I started wondering, what is my version of an extreme thing of exploring space, but still sort of keeping gravity and an atmosphere? And so I got obsessed with Antarctica, because Antarctica is one of the most extreme locations on Earth. There's a lot of interesting life there that can only survive in extreme conditions, or can survive the extreme conditions and elsewhere on Earth. There's just a lot of really interesting parallels between Antarctica and places in our solar system and places further in our galaxy. So I was like, okay, going to Antarctica is my version of going to space. I really want to go. One problem, I still don't have a background in science at all, so I wasn't quite sure what to do, and I didn't want to just go as a tourist. I wanted to be there with all the nerds in Antarctica, all the amazing scientists who are doing amazing work contributing to our knowledge and our understanding of science and the Earth and the solar system. And so I didn't want to go just as a tourist. I wanted to figure out how I could contribute to that science. So thankfully, I came across a grant by the National Science Foundation called the Antarctic Artists and Writers Grant. And this grant sends artists and writers to make really interesting contributions to Antarctic science in unique ways. And it's an amazing grant. It sends artists there, it pays for their flight, doesn't pay for any of their time or their equipment. So I created a Patreon campaign to help with that, and I began applying for this. And I tried to figure out what I could contribute. Even though I went to art school, I'm really terrible at drawing, really just awful at drawing, not great at it. But I talked to a lot of scientists and researchers who went to Antarctica, and I learned that even though biologists get sent down there all the time to tell us what creatures live down there, they very rarely take any pictures. They maybe only take 1 or 2 pictures, which go into a scientific paper, which goes behind a paywall, and we don't really get a sense of what any of the creatures down there look like, except for perhaps the penguins. So with this in mind, I said, well, perhaps I can teach myself microscopy using microscopes and taking images, and so that I can actually photograph and film a lot of the microbes that live in Antarctica. So I got to teaching myself microscopy. I joined a really nerdy society called the San Francisco Microscopical Society. It's as nerdy as it sounds. But I joined a community of people who could help me in my journey in teaching myself microscopy and applying for this grant. And so after 5 years of effort and 4 applications to this grant, this last October, I finally got my chance and finally went to Antarctica. I took a C-17 military aircraft there, has no windows except for a very small hole, this one right here, and this was the very first time I got to see Antarctica with my own eyes. It was just breathtaking and really made me forget just how uncomfortable that military aircraft was to be in. So it was this amazing trip, and I got to be embedded with a lot of different people all over Antarctica who took me to locations where I could sample microbes and sort of get a view of life under the ice. So one of those locations was here. This is on the sea ice. That's a fish hut. And inside that fish hut, people go diving. There are people who actually want to go into the very cold depths of Antarctica to go diving down an ice hole. And so I joined some divers, and I didn't go down the ice hole myself, but there was a similar thing that I had an opportunity to do. There's an ob tube, the observation tube, which is a metal pipe that they insert into the sea ice, and you can go down, kind of like in Mario, down this pipe. And what's at the bottom is just incredible. This is what you get to see when you go to the bottom of the ob tube. All those dots, those are fish. That's the sea ice above. So you're suspended between the sea ice and the seafloor, getting to literally witness the life under the ice and peel back sort of the ice curtain that covers everything in Antarctica and reveal that there's actually a lot of life in Antarctica. You just can't see it all the time. So this is what the ob tube looks like from the outside. And you can take selfies with divers, which is pretty cool. Other things that I ended up doing was I embedded with a team who has a sea ice robot that looks at the edges of glaciers from the sea, and embedded with them to sort of explore the ocean. And I also weirdly climbed up a glacier, and I say weirdly because I'm really not physically fit, and a lot of people didn't know if I could climb a glacier, but I did. And that's because on the top of the glacier you can drill into it, and there are actually microbes that live inside the glacier itself. So I got to go up there and get samples of microbes and look at life embedded in the ice. So all of this, as I said, was sort of in the service of trying to have photos and videos of microbes that live in Antarctica to show that Antarctica is actually an oasis of life. It's not barren. There's actually a lot of life there. And I did all of this because I'll be launching a website later this year and putting all of these photos and videos under Creative Commons for anyone to use so that there's just a bigger community resource of what all these look like. And an example of what they look like is this. This is a tardigrade. How many of you have heard of tardigrades, also known as water bears? A few of you. Okay, the ones who don't, definitely Google it. They are adorable. They have little claws, and they look like little bears, little gummy bears almost. And you can see its eyes there and clawing around. They're just really cute. What I love about tardigrades is not only can you find them in Antarctica, they've also been exposed to the vacuum of space and survived. These are hardcore little critters, but they're also everywhere. The moss in the sidewalks outside of here, the moss anywhere in your backyard, in your garden, there are tardigrades there. They live all over the earth, so you don't have to travel to Antarctica to see them. You can actually figure out getting some tardigrades from the moss in your own garden, in your backyard, in your sidewalk, and figure out how to find them. You can Google videos for how to find tardigrades, and it's just fun. So I like examples like these for showing that there are many different ways to contribute to different areas of knowledge. But I like not only talking about different ways of contributing, but also different contributors, the diversity of people actually contributing to projects. How many of you have seen the film Hidden Figures? A lot of you. Okay, good, awesome. It's a really awesome movie about Katherine Johnson, pictured here, and many other mathematicians and computers who contributed to NASA and the space race, and who were really sadly overlooked and forgotten and discriminated against. And I love that there are movies now like Hidden Figures out there that are bringing these stories to life. The unfortunate reality is that there's a lot of hidden figures still in space exploration and science that get overlooked, and we really need to be changing that, and that's something that I think is important to change, is not only the ways in which people can contribute, but also highlighting the stories of all the different people who are contributing to things. Another story that people don't know a lot about was that the Saturn V rocket that NASA was using needed to use a lot of honeycomb insulation. And they were really struggling with how to get this honeycomb insulation to stick onto the rocket. And what they actually discovered was that the people who were most expertly working with this insulation were surfboarders. So for a period of time, NASA actually hired surfboarders to work on the Saturn V rocket. And so this is the thing, people from different backgrounds and different occupations and different ways of looking at the world have contributed to science and space exploration and tech over time, and a lot of times their stories get forgotten, and a lot of times in modern day, their stories are still being forgotten or overlooked. I said that when I launched spacehack.org over 10 years ago, a lot of things had changed, but some things had stayed the same. One of the things that's changed is that 10 years ago, there was still a lot of problems in that you had hidden figures. There weren't a lot of faces associated with space exploration. Nowadays, it's sort of the opposite. There are a couple faces associated with space exploration, specifically billionaires associated with space exploration. And while that's changed, the thing that's remained the same is that it really hides a lot of the people and faces and stories and diversity of people who are actively contributing to space exploration and science and technology today. And why that's an issue is not only for not displaying that diversity, but also for sort of the narrative of why people even contribute in the first place. If you talk to billionaires in space about why do we send humans into space? Why do we go? Why do we do this at all? Most of them will talk to you about how it's for human survival, that if we don't become a multi-planet species, eventually we're all going to die out. And so it's in our human survival interest to explore space and to go further and further. While that's not entirely incorrect or wrong, it's disingenuous to say that is the reason why we do this. Because when you look at surveys and you look at data over the decades, and a lot of research has been done on why we go into space, there's actually a lot of different reasons. There's science, economic benefits, international relations, inspiration, national security, human survival, shared human destiny and exploration. There's many different reasons in which people go into space and explore space. And different people have different reasons, and no one reason garners a majority vote. So to say that there is one reason, and the reason why we're doing this, and the reason why people contribute is this, sort of communicates that if that's not your reason, then maybe it's not for you. And that's really sad to me, because a lot of times people will cite multiple reasons why they do something, and no one agrees, and that's okay. It's okay. So I really am interested in breaking single narratives, in breaking this idea that we need to have a single narrative and a single story of why we do things, why people contribute, and I want to sort of create more of a patchwork of why we do these things. So for me, that's really about building massively multiplayer science, taken from massively multiplayer online games. The idea that really, if you have a diverse team of people with different skill sets and different ways of looking at things, that's how you can accomplish big tasks. That's how you can explore new worlds. And so an example I love of this is a literal patchwork. I love this. This project that you're looking at here is called the Spacesuit Art Project, and it's a literal patchwork of a spacesuit. I love this because this doesn't look like space exploration as you know it. It's not white and streamlined and minimalistic. It's maximalism, if anything. It's something where it shows that there's a different way of doing things, a different aesthetic of having things. And it sort of underlines how used to the fact that we are about things looking a certain way, and that's just how it is. But I really dislike that. It shouldn't be the way it is. There should be a lot of different ways of doing and looking at things. And so I said this is a literal patchwork. This project is actually led by astronaut Nicole Stott, and she goes around to hospitals all over the world and works with kids in those hospitals to design different different patches that then get sewn together into these astronaut suits. And it's just beautiful. Another example of a project I love is a group of people who wanted to 3D scan supernovas. Supernovas are exploded stars. They give us these really beautiful images of what they look like, but for the most part, they were flat. You couldn't really see much other than just a picture. So a group wanted to 3D scan supernovas, but You can't exactly point a 3D scanner at the sky and get a 3D scan of a supernova that way. So what they instead did is they looked to open source software, specifically 3D Slicer. And 3D Slicer is used to create 3D fly-throughs of brains, brain imagery from MRIs. And this group thought about, well, what if instead of feeding 3D Slicer brains, what if we fed it a supernova? So they tried out feeding it this supernova. This is Cassiopeia A. And the result they got was this. This is the very first 3D fly-through of a supernova remnant that was ever created. This was created through a project called the Harvard Astronomical Medicine Project. As you can imagine, it got departments from astronomy and medicine to collaborate together on different visualization techniques, different pieces of software, different ways of doing things, and they saw benefits from both sides, which was just amazing, and it's just beautiful. This was done several years ago. Just released, perhaps even a few weeks ago, is this same supernova remnant that you can actually explore in 3D yourself on a virtual reality system or on the web. If you're interested in checking it out for yourself, you can grab a quick snapshot of this URL. And it's just amazing to see these sorts of things come to life because people from different disciplines collaborated together and really respected that there are different ways of doing things that they can learn from one another. So you would think this sort of thing would happen all the time, that there'd be all these beautiful collaborations between different areas and disciplines. But I'm from San Francisco, so Silicon Valley is pretty close to me. This is a Google Map image of how far away Google, the company, is from one of NASA's centers. NASA and Google in Silicon Valley are right next door to each other. So you would think there'd be like all this amazing collaboration and social overlap. But a few years ago, I had some friends who were taking a tour of Google, and they were looking around, and these were friends from NASA. And as they were looking around and taking this tour of Google, they were going like, oh my God, we're at Google, this is so cool. At the same time, I saw Googlers tweeting that they were so excited that people from NASA were there that day. And I thought that this was ridiculous. They're right next door to each other. They adore each other. They look up to each other. Why aren't they creating all these awesome projects together? And so born out of this frustration came an event called Science Hack Day, to try and give people an excuse to end up at the same place together to learn from each other and prototype things and just make things with people from different disciplines and people that they don't know. And so I have a quick video that sort of better explains what Science Hack Day is all about.
Welcome to Science Hack Day.
Science Hack Day is a weekend event that gets scientists, designers, developers, technologists, artists, lawyers, writers, people from all different disciplines together in the same physical space to see what they can rapidly prototype with science in 24 consecutive hours. So these can be silly things, they can be solving serious problems. It's really just about whatever excites you and prototyping it to whatever fidelity level you can. What Science Hack Day really brings to the world is multidisciplinary collaboration, getting people from all over to collaborate together who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to. And to me, this is really creating unique, serendipitous, awesome stuff in science that otherwise wouldn't exist. So Science Hack Day is all about bringing things to the world that otherwise wouldn't be created anywhere else.
So some of those weird, silly, fun things that have come out of Science Hack Day have been things like this. What this is someone who wanted to create a typeface in which all the letters would have equal wind drag. I don't know why. So what you're looking at here is a makeshift wind tunnel, and someone cut out the letters of all the letters of the alphabet and then recorded the wind drag of each individual letter. And so if you need a typeface in which all the letters have equal wind drag, it looks something like this. I have no idea how this is useful whatsoever. But this was a physicist who was playing with typography. And this physicist actually went on to get a degree in art. And this is what I love. Science Hack Day isn't really about having scientists as mentors on a platform and everyone's learning from them. It's about everyone learning from each other, everyone being on the same level. And so you have scientists playing around with typography as much as you have people learning about supernovas. And it's just a lot of fun to be able to view science as just another fabric to manipulate, just another thing to dip into that you don't necessarily have to change your entire career in order to contribute. Another all-time favorite hack of mine from Science Hack Day is a device someone wanted to create that would detect when they needed to shave. A beard detector. I don't know why. So what someone did is they took a USB microscope, very cheap microscope, and they held it up to their face, and they got this really gross image of all the stubble on their face. And then they wrote some basic code and used an open computer vision library, and you can see it trying to draw lines around the stubble on his face, and when it doesn't detect any, it says no beard found, no beard found, and when it detects stubble, it tells him how long it is and if he needs to shave. When I saw this demo, I thought it was amusing, but I had no idea what it really had to do with science. But sitting in the audience and seeing this hack demoed was a particle physicist who thought this was actually a genius way for how to detect cosmic rays in a cloud chamber, which sounds ridiculous until you see what cosmic rays in a cloud chamber looks like. And so following Science Hack Day, this particle physicist created a multi-year student-led research program around detecting cosmic rays in a cloud chamber that used the original code and computer vision library someone used to detect whether or not they needed to shave. And this is what I love so much about hacking and prototyping things and multidisciplinary collaboration, and the idea that everyone can contribute is the idea that gives sparks to future ideas, future collaborations, and future cool stuff. So Science Hack Day is not an organization. So similar to how GitLab is remote and that's sort of their ethos, well, Science Hack Day is not an organization, and that's our ethos. We want everyone to be able to own Science Hack Day as much as the next person. And so Science Hack Day is now in 30 countries, not as many as GitLab, but perhaps you all will change that. And Science Hack Day can be organized by anyone. So there's an open set of instructions for how to organize a Science Hack Day in your city at sciencehackday.org. And it's just a fun, informal event. It's free to attend, and it's highly collaborative and inclusive. It's not competitive. We don't have Science Hack Day as something where you have to compete with other people to be cool. Everyone's just creating things for fun. You can be part of multiple teams. It's very open-ended, something that I think a lot of you would very much get here at GitLab. So Science Hack Day is just, I don't know, it's been an amazing journey to go on and see happen all over the world. There's another project that I'm involved in that I wanted to share with all of you called NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts. So I talked about leaving NASA. Well, a few years later, they asked me back but as an advisor to this program called NIAC. And NIAC is the only program at NASA that funds the more futuristic, out there, sort of weird concepts that could transform future space missions. And anyone can apply to NIAC. If you're outside of the US, as long as you collaborate with someone inside the US, you can apply to NIAC. And you can apply if you work in the commercial industry or academic, or you're out of your garage. It's open to anyone. But on the surface, it feels a little intimidating. The future of space exploration concepts, how could I possibly contribute to that? That seems very far away from everything I do every day. But the reality, like I've said throughout this entire presentation, is that concepts from different areas can be transformative when applied to other areas. So a perfect example of this is this. This is essentially someone who wanted to keep a rover in continuous sunlight so that it didn't have to power down overnight on the moon. So what you're watching is a video of sunlight moving across the moon taken by a lunar orbiter. And what they did is they just used computer vision to keep the little rover, which is the yellow dot, in continuous sunlight so that it doesn't have to power down overnight, so it can be more efficient, do more science, and just do more fun stuff on the moon. This is something that, if you are familiar with computer vision, this is very present-day technology to just create better routes so that rovers don't have to go into the shadow, so they don't have to power down overnight. But this got funding from NIAC because it hasn't been applied to space exploration before. And this is my entire point, is that a lot of things that you're working on and focusing on that seem very everyday to you can be really transformative to other disciplines. So if this sounds like something that you would be interested in applying to, or you know other people who would be interested in applying to, the solicitation opens up in August this year. All that's needed to apply is a 3-page white paper, and there's more information about how to do it at niacfellows.org. It's a website I created because the NASA website for how to apply is kind of hard to read. So again, I'm always like kind of making websites for NASA, I feel. But if you go to niacfellows.org, it'll tell you how to apply, what they're looking for, and everything like that. And again, all that's needed is a 3-page white paper. And even if your concept doesn't get picked, the really cool thing here is that you can actually get feedback from NASA on your concept, if you're headed in the right direction or not, if it's something that maybe they are interested in. And so that's a neat opportunity. So I've talked a lot about multidisciplinary collaboration and all the important things here. And I just want to leave you all with the idea that exploring things, be it Antarctica or space or just anything, exploring your own backyard, is really about a patchwork of contributions. It's really not a single narrative, not a single story, but it's the patchwork of people coming together that makes exploration so meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. That was awesome. And just hopefully it blew my mind on all the different ways anyone can contribute. That's what I loved. And I think of contribute, we are sort of hacking a company right now. So this is what we're doing. It's like our own space hack day, but we're hacking a company. And I love that idea. And one of the things that, we've talked about culture, we've talked about contributing, but we also have a product. And the product, because of the values that it has, makes a lot of this possible for us. It's a great product. And so what I thought we'd do is spend just a few minutes, and we have about less than 45 minutes left, so hang with us, just a few minutes talking about the product, and we wanted to bring the team up, some of the leaders from the product team, to do that. So team, come on up. Mark? Thanks, Tom. Let me get to the right slide. Oh, going the wrong way. Oh. And it's you.
Excellent, thank you. Not sure how to follow up after all that awesome stuff. Yeah, I'm here to talk about product strategy and vision. But if I recall correctly, this might be written down somewhere. Maybe there's a couple of videos you can watch. So in the spirit of efficiency, we're not going to cover anything that you can read or watch. We're going to make this a little bit more personal here and actually have a panel of some of our great product managers on the team. So let's start off and just introduce ourselves. I'm Mark Fonsack, VP Product Strategy.
Josh Lambert, Product Manager Scaling. Kenny Johnston, Director of Product for Ops.
My name is Brendan O'Leary. I'm the Senior Product Manager for Verify.
Hi, my name is Virginia, and I'm a Senior Product Manager for Manage.
Hi, my name is Eric Brinkman. I'm the Director of Product for Dev.
Oh, I see we lost the speaker notes. I'm going to have to see if I remember all the questions. All right, well, first thing is just to get to know each other a little bit here. There's a couple of people here who have some interesting origin stories, how you got to GitLab and how to get to product management specifically. Brendan, why don't you kick it off?
Sure, thanks, Mark. So I started out life, actually, I was a GitLab user before I became a GitLabber. And I kind of inherited the problem that we talk about a lot. I inherited a disparate tool chain as a director of DevOps for a contract to the US federal government. And because of that, I had no way to really measure what my team was doing if I was adding value to this company that had hired me. And so I kind of lived that journey that we talked with our customers about and fell in love with the product first. Then in 2017, I had an opportunity to join GitLab to kind of get on the bus. And I was the first hire into our services organization in professional services. And I spent a couple of years helping to build that group. And then when our product group was expanding, I really wanted to take the opportunity to try and move over because, again, it's where my passion was first. And I'd kind of been in engineering and management and product management before in my career. And so when I saw that they were opening for the part of the product that I fell in love with first, which is CI, and I told Camille this when I met him for the first time in Greece, and he was a little taken aback. But I was like, I've been watching you, Camille, and I fell in love with this thing. It's a little weirded out. And if you had told me, even back then, or a year before that, 3 years ago, let's say, that Mark was going to hand me the keys to GitLab CI and say, don't mess it up, I would have said, that's a really horrible idea, don't do that. But here we are. So.
Yeah, and definitely don't mess it up. CI is one of the key parts of kind of our product right now, right? Product leadership in CI and SCM, of course. And Virginia, tell us about your story.
Sure. So I basically started my career as a trader for exotic products in one of the big investment banks, and I was one of those people that never understood why it takes so long to create a product. But as a result of that, I became super passionate about efficiency, about optimization and automation. So even though I joined GitLab in one of the more R&D projects called Meltano, as soon as I heard that there is going to be an opportunity that's going to be almost exclusively focused on improving the transparency and the efficiency across the whole development lifecycle, I just couldn't do anything else but jump on it. So I'm now going to basically work on what I believe is a very unique. It basically represents a very unique opportunity for us because of the integrated nature of our solution, and more specifically, basically bringing all of the data and analytics that we can collect from by basically having a tool spanning all the different development stages, and bring value stream management to a different level. I also think that this will actually help us to solidify our position as a trusted partner for technological transformations for big organizations.
Great, thanks, Virginia. Yeah, value stream management is one of those, we're not yet a leader in that space, but we really have high hopes for that, and it's a really important area. Cool. So for the rest of us, tell us, Josh, you start off. Tell us why you were excited to join GitLab.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So like Brendan, I also was a user of GitLab prior to coming here. So my company at the time used GitLab, but we didn't take advantage of all of its features, only its core SCM features, but still had a great reputation. So when I saw some openings, before I interviewed, I of course went ahead and tried it myself, the whole product. So I downloaded Omnibus, I set up a GitLab server, imported a project, created some issues, created an MR, hooked up a CI runner, and deployed some code. And I did that all in like an hour. And so I was just like, why is my company using these other tools? I don't understand. This is an amazing experience. I could do this in an hour. And it just sold me the whole vision of the company and the single application. So I was just blown away. So I was super excited about that. And I think also just the space that we're all in, developer tools, is really interesting, a lot of fun, it moves quickly, but at the end of the day, you're helping other developers make software more efficiently and in a better way, and that's just really fulfilling, I find. And so that combination is really, really interesting and a great place to work. So.
Cool, thanks, Josh. Have you since gone back and got your old team to use it?
I've been trying. Shared Mac runners would be a big selling point for them.
All right, Kenny, how about you? Same question.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. There are kind of three primary reasons for me. I'd heard about GitLab from my work in other large open source communities. It had always been around, especially known for its transparency and the open source nature of the product. But for me, there was about the product strategy, product management in general, and how we do product management here, and the all-remote nature. And so I really fell in love with the idea of the single application. I mean, the trends in the industry are the move towards DevOps and adding more functions, DevSec, BizOps, that we talk about. Adding more functions to DevOps requires collaboration and just kind of amplifies the pain point of having multiple tools in that tool chain. It just seemed like a very natural fit and something that not only the product, but the way we approach the market in this kind of transparent and iterative way seemed like an awesome fit that I was excited to join. And I've always been I've had a huge passion for the function of product management. I remember when in my first tech job,
I'd met a product manager, it was at HP, and I remember after meeting him and talking to him, I walked away being like, I want to be like that guy when I grow up. And so I've always had a place in my heart for product management. And the way we do product management here is very different, and I think is very unique, and it accentuates the kind of core components of product management. We empower our product managers, we make them DRIs. I have interviewed a lot of people for product management positions since starting. One of the things that I've done, and some of the people in this room are people who I've done this with, I've reached out on LinkedIn and just said, will you give me a 15-minute phone call to try to convince you that there is no better place to be a product manager in this industry than GitLab? And thankfully it's worked. And then lastly is the all remoteness. What Ariel was talking about, hacking is a great way to think about it, but I was excited to hack on building remote culture, building remote teams. It's just being a part of that. It's pretty amazing. I came from a place where I was a remote worker, but had the rest of the company had a home base, and I would travel every 3 weeks back to home base. And I remember when I took my first work trip, I'd been at GitLab for 5 months at a time. My son came up to me and was like, hey, Dad, it's okay that you're traveling. It's only a couple of days and you haven't been traveling at all. That's just an amazing thing for a child to recognize, and it made me feel good in my heart to know that I was able to be there more for them as a result of having come to GitLab. So those are the 3 big reasons for me.
Cool, thanks, Kenny. Eric.
Yeah, there's a ton of reasons why I wanted to come here, but I'll focus in on basically the primary reason, which was the product strategy, and then the velocity at which that strategy is executed upon. And so I'll share a quick story that really drove that home for me. I was going through the interview process in late 2018. It was a month or 2 after the Series D round had been raised, and there was a live stream that was put on the homepage for a while that was moderated by Priyanka. And a lot of people were interviewed in that live stream, but there was a gentleman named Matthew Jacobson from Iconic that was interviewed in that live stream, and he talked about what is the primary reason that you, Iconic, wanted to invest into GitLab? And his answer struck me, and it said, we wanted to invest because of the product velocity and the product strategy. And so a lot of companies have really great product strategy, but the velocity at which they execute on that strategy is really slow sometimes, or maybe you can execute really well, but you're executing on the wrong things. And it's really rare for that to happen really well, both parts of that to happen really well outside of Silicon Valley. And so for someone who doesn't want to live in Silicon Valley for personal reasons or for family, it was just a really unique opportunity to get to have both of those things. And especially as a product individual, you want to work at a place that has something really fascinating to work on and does it really, really quickly. And so that's the primary reason that I wanted to join.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It was a great confirmation for me when I heard that too. Like, I know we're onto something pretty cool with our product strategy, and we have this great velocity, but seeing our investors say that was like the #1 reason that they were excited. It was really cool. And then the Silicon Valley thing is really cool too. I know I moved from Boston to Silicon Valley a while ago, and it was really eye-opening that different companies wanted to make money and various levels of success, but Silicon Valley companies are sort of known for like changing the world. And I feel like that's something we all have an opportunity to do from everywhere in the world and not just from Silicon Valley, and that's pretty rare. So enough about us. Let's start talking about features. Thanks. Let's start talking about features. What are some of the features that are coming up that you're all really excited about? We're going to go through the whole panel here. So Josh, how about you just kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of them I'm excited about, if I had to pick one, is our executive dashboards. So in talking to customers, once they reach a certain scale, what you find is that they all have a team of people who go out there and try and pull data from their entire DevOps stack, so 5 or 10 or 15 different tools. And then they kind of get it into a data warehouse, and then they stick Tableau on top of it and try and get some analytics to figure out, how's our velocity doing, how's our quality, and other key metrics. And this takes a team of people to maintain. And we have an opportunity at GitLab with the single application to really make that out of the box and just instant on for everyone. And if you want to customize it, sure. And that way that team can go off and do more important things to the company. And also companies that don't have the money or scale to have a team do that can also benefit as well from these important metrics. And so I think that'll really is a really awesome opportunity for GitLab. And it'll help companies track these things, but it'll also, I think, for GitLab, help to illustrate the benefit of the tool. And so as teams embrace more of the product and the product gets more distributed, you can hopefully see those metrics going up. And so I think that'll be awesome to see as well.
Yeah, cool. Virginia, how about you?
Thanks. So I'm very lucky because he kind of just sold my area of the product.
You're excited about the same thing.
And I'm most excited about my area of the product. But I do believe that what he said is actually true. And I'm most excited about enabling actually engineers themselves, engineering managers, and not only executives to actually understand a little bit better their development lifecycle and be able to actually manage their value stream through data rather than gut feeling, which is, I think, what happens now most of the time. So I'm most excited about enabling visualizations in terms of trends, but also actually working with clients to identify patterns that happen across different customers. And we actually have that ability because of GitLab.com and our very close relationships with a lot of our on-premise clients. I'm also really excited about the opportunity to actually not just expose our data in a dashboard, which I think is kind of like the first thing that clients want, but actually allow them to look at a very, very, very high level value stream management on an instance basis, and then just go straight down and drill down to the specific code base that's actually causing them to slow down. And maybe that's because of not enough test coverage. So I think by basically embedding the analytics in the product, we have the opportunity to develop something really interesting.
Cool. Kenny, what features are you excited about?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We'll start with this point that in my first couple of months at GitLab, I just remember being blown away by reading the release posts. I mean, it's 3,000 or 4,000 words, all crazy new stuff that I had not been exposed to, and was all super interesting and exciting. And we do that every month. I can't remember the current count, but something like 86 months running, we've shipped a new release. Which is just unheard of, and the amount of stuff we pack in is awesome. A couple of things that just top of mind that are coming up is incident response and incident management that actually Sarah has joined our team to lead us in. Super excited about that. We recently started doing more work around allowing security reviews in the merge request, which is really about, the whole move in security is shift left, do more of your security testing as part of your development cycle, so that's awesome. And then I know Daniel's been working on group level and instance level clusters, which will, if you can kind of provide that infrastructure to your entire development team, really enable those teams to almost treat GitLab like a PaaS-like application where they can just come and have the infrastructure ready to do their development and testing on. So those are some 3 highlight ones. There's another meta point that I think is important. Our work in the lovableness of CI and the DevOps lifecycle of CI and CD really, to date, enable customers to iterate quickly on the features of their application. And as we move into the ops and defend stages, we're really more talking about there's a set of capabilities that are outside of the features, the cybersecurity of your application, the observability of your application, the way you manage your application once it's in production, that we are uniquely positioned to put under source control and iterate and allow our customers to iterate on in just the same way they iterate on the features. And so I'm really excited about our kind of continued breadth in the ops and defend stages.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, we're moving from just developer tool to DevOps, but we define DevOps really as everything that you do with software development, so Dev, Sec, Ops, executives, designers, everybody that's part of it. And one of the big shifts we're doing is not just making it from the developer side, but for these people. So not just dev and ops, but developers and operations people and security people and stuff like that. Who's got the mic? Pass it on. Here, go.
Yeah, there's a few things that I'm excited about coming up soon. In the create stage, I'm really excited about live preview in the Web IDE. So this is server-side evaluation of the changes you're making in the Web IDE and being able to see that in a panel right next to your code. It's going to be a really cool feature that allowing you to see your changes much quicker without actually committing to your branch and then waiting for a review app to deploy. I'm excited for a few plan improvements that we're making, specifically to boards. We're thinking through what bulk edit actions look like on boards, so being able to move a ton of issues from, say, one board list to another. Super exciting stuff. Also being asked for by a lot of customers right now who are using boards for sprint planning and other purposes. Also within plan, the ability to drag and drop issue lists. Issues on the issue list is like super exciting to me. A ton of you have asked for that. We're doing it in 12.0. And then I wanted to highlight one last thing in Manage. So obviously we've talked about analytics, which Manage is responsible for. But there's some really kind of like unsexy features in Manage that are super important that I wanted to call out too, like the ability to whitelist groups by IP address, smart card improvements. These types of things are allowing all of us to attack verticals and segments that we might not be able to attack unless we had some of this additional control from an authentication and access perspective. And so I'm excited about those things as well.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, the boards and stuff like that, the project management, it's another one of the key focuses for us for this year. Definitely want to aim for leadership there. Brendan.
Yeah, sure. So unsurprisingly, the feature I'm most excited about, excited is a key word, is in Verify, and it's the visual review apps. And so what this is it's, again, bringing more people in, everyone that has to be involved and contribute to the DevOps lifecycle. Right? We talk about our ability to review code in a merge request, obviously. We talk about our ability to spin up a review app so that you can then use that as, let's review what actually changed. What did this change actually impact to how the user experience works, how it's visualized, how it's designed. And so what we're bringing is the ability to actually comment and add discussions to the merge request from within the review app. So you can take a screenshot, you can annotate it, you can talk about what's wrong or needs to be changed about what the visualization of or the UX of the app is, just like you talk about the code changes. And that's something that I think is really exciting. It's bringing other folks into the DevOps lifecycle. And to Ariel's point, it's brought to us by a brand new GitLabber who can't be here with us, Sarah, who's a senior front-end engineer on our team, whose other life is as an artist. So if you haven't met her yet, sign up for a coffee chat. She does CSS art, and it's amazing. And she's bringing us this fantastic feature in like her third month here, I think, or second month here. I'm really excited about it.
I love those features that really bridge, or things that only we can do because we cover the whole life cycle, or that we do much better at least, that it would take really, really hard to do otherwise. Last question, we're going to now focus on customers a little bit. Tell us about some of your recent interactions with customers that have like changed your mind or surprised you. Kenny, how about you kick it off?
Yeah, so the overwhelming thing that I've experienced from being at GitLab and talking to customers is that customers use the word love when they talk about our product, which has never happened to me before in any other product company I've ever worked. But they're effusive in their love for us. And in fact, even when they give us really good criticism, they start with, we love you guys, but here's something about it, which just tells me they're very invested in our success. A customer that we recently had an escalation with recently came back and talked about how much they loved our product, and really talked about how much they loved the engagement that they could have with us on issues, directly on issues, the transparency that we provide, the kind of comfort that we do in, I was joking earlier, like we give our customers a hug, right? We bring them in as close as possible. There is no difference between our customers and our company and our community. And that really, shines through in every customer interaction I've ever had. One of the first times we had in the virtual cab meeting, we came there to ask customers, like, hey, in standard software, you have a very prescriptive month upon which you have a major version release. And we were like, is it important to you that every year we have a major version on a specific month? And to a T, every customer said, yeah, that's great, that would be nice, but really we just care about your speed of iteration. Like, just keep iterating. That's what I want you to do. And it's been really cool to me to see how our value of iteration gets reflected back to us from our customers.
Cool. Brendan, how about you? Same question.
Yeah, so similarly, I think a surprising thing is how invested customers are and in us. And it's not just about, again, any cab, any customer interaction, they're going to want to talk about a shiny button or a feature they want. But I've been really interested as part of Verify. We own the GitLab Runner. And the communities and customers that are bringing passion to this seemingly simple agent that doesn't know very much and it just runs our jobs. But the ways that they're expanding that to different platforms, to high-performance computing applications, that's really surprising to me as a product manager, because you're normally talking about UX or what a button should look like or what color it should be, right? That's what a customer wants to talk to you about. But we are building software for software developers and for DevOps folks that have that passion for the technology side too, which is really cool.
Cool, thanks. I think we only got time for one more, so Josh, how about you wrap it up?
Sure, yeah. So to pick on an interaction we had recently at the cab, the in-person cab in New York, we had asked them to sort of take some play money and invest in sort of certain features, for example. And one of the features which I happened to be sitting next to a customer that got some money was Linux package management. And I kind of made a comment like, wow, like I'm surprised Linux package management.
Linux developers out there.
Yeah, like how many people are actually building Linux packages? And he said, well, few to none actually are building Linux packages. But what everyone wants and what we need is a caching service. And so when we go and build our software, we pull packages from Debian, from Red Hat, from other places. And this takes time, it costs money. If the internet is flaky on either the end side or your side, it fails your tests randomly. And that's what we actually need. We're not building packages ourselves. And I thought that was really interesting. And of course, once you sort of hear it, it's like, oh, of course. And so that was a good realization. And the other one would be kind of facet of that would be the iteration that at GitLab we can sort of target and ship just the caching service first and leave the other parts of Linux package management, like how we publish our own packages, to a time later to serve like a smaller need. So it's pretty cool.
Iteration, it's a pretty powerful force. All right, thanks everyone. I think that's all the time we have today.
They're going under 3.
All right, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mark, you want to grab this on the way out? Thanks. All right, we have, as we talked about, a big product vision, a big scope, and we also have really big goals. And I think that's an important thing is we have something to shoot for. And the next thing we're going to talk about is a milestone, even more than a goal. It's not the end, it's the beginning of more growth, most likely. So Sid did this kind of crazy thing is he actually put in the handbook the date that we are going to IPO. You can find it, it's in the handbook. November 18th, I believe it is 2020. And so there's a lot that happens in a company of our size to prepare for something like that. And at least we knew the date ahead of time so that we could start preparing early. So the next folks I want to invite up for the panel is McBride, our CRO, and 2 of our board members. And to qualify for this panel, you had to be wearing a blazer. So come on up.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you to all the contributors who've made this a fantastic start to the week. And thank you, Todd, for giving us the coveted last spot that keeps 600 people from lunch and a party in the park. We have a few minutes to talk about this milestone with 2 of our board members who bring a wealth of experience to GitLab. And to start with a couple of introductions, I'm Michael McBride, Chief Revenue Officer. I've had the good fortune to work for 8 high-growth companies, 6 of which were acquired, and 2 of which I was fortunate enough to either take public or run as a public company. And in that experience, I think I've learned a lot of the indicators of what brings companies into the position to be successful and have that opportunity to grow into a larger and larger organization. And GitLab is by far and away the most exciting and most compelling one I've ever been a part of. I'll introduce Sue Bostrom. Sue just recently joined the board, so not only are we welcoming her to her first Contribute, we're welcoming her to the board of GitLab. She joined last month. And she comes to us with a wealth of experience, including a long tenure at Cisco as EVP and Chief Marketing Officer, where she was helping to steward the growth of probably one of the best public growth stories in the history of enterprise technology. She's on the board of several companies and brings that experience to GitLab with a growth stretch at Cisco that I think was $7 billion to about was it $40 billion?
$40 billion.
And employees grew to 70,000 from 10,000 while she was there. So she knows a thing or two about growth. And she's born in the Midwest in the United States, and she's been in the Bay Area, has 3 adult children, and has been married for 35 years. So welcome.
Thank you.
Bruce has been with GitLab for quite a while. So he was not only a seed investor, but also a Series A from Khosla. He's a partner at Khosla, but he's been an operator for the majority of his career. And before he joined Khosla, he was both CEO and an executive at a number of public companies. He's also been on the board of more than 35 companies and currently serves on 10 on behalf of Khosla, and that includes a number of companies like Mesosphere, MemSQL, Vectra, Bay Labs, and a few others. Bruce is also a surfer, and when I was joining GitLab, he was negotiating my job offer while surfing, and I learned today that while surfing meant he was actually in the water with his headset in. So
let's get this offer done.
He's a fan of remote, and I'm looking forward to eventually actually getting invited on a surf trip, which hasn't happened yet.
100 million ARR.
So, got to check a few boxes. So maybe we'll start just with a quick definition. IPO is an initial public offering. This is a topic that comes up a lot as companies grow very quickly in the technology world and eventually becomes clear that there's broader interest in investing in the company. And what that means is, quite simply, the mechanic of either selling shares to raise money and putting that into the public market. You typically have underwriters to help support that and find sellers and set a price and list that on the stock exchange. These days, you've probably seen a few direct listings in which a company can do that without underwriters and not necessarily have to raise money. That can be done before or after going public. But really, it's an opportunity for the rest of the investors around the world to have an opportunity to also participate in the ownership of GitLab. So maybe we'll start with a little pro and con here. And maybe we'll start with you, Sue. I know there's no universal answer for every company, but would love to hear a little background on what you think is good and challenging about becoming a public company.
Great. Well, first of all, I'd just like to start and say thank you so much for the wonderful welcome. I'm so excited to be officially part of the GitLab community. As you mentioned, I've served on a number of different boards. I calculated the other day that I've been on 12 corporate boards. 4 of those that I joined when they were public, companies like ServiceNow and Nutanix, and then 8 companies that I joined when they were private. And of those private companies, 3 of them I was involved in the IPO process, in the deciding to go public and then ultimately taking the companies public. There's a lot of great benefits to becoming a public company, but I always say it's easy to become public, it's hard to be public. And to become public, the real benefit of it is that, number one, you can raise money, so you can invest it in growth for the future of the company. Second is there's great market reasons, both in terms of marketing and awareness, as well as those customers, especially enterprise customers, who like the idea that when you're a public company and you're reporting your financials and analysts are examining you, that there's a little bit more stability in choosing you as a vendor. And then obviously there's benefits for the employees because it offers liquidity, it offers the company to offer benefits like employee stock purchase plans. I'd say there's another benefit, though, that is implicit in all of it, which is to be able to take yourself public, you need a strong performance record, and you also need some of the systems and controls and processes that allow you to become predictable. And so those are things that it's sort of like taking your medicine. You're like, oh, do I really want to do this? It's a little bit constraining. Is it limiting our creativity? But in fact, there's a lot of benefits to having those systems in place so that when you share with your shareholders, your public shareholders, what you're going to do and what your plans are, that you actually are certain that you and your organization can deliver on those.
Bruce?
She said it all. This is why we have Sue on the board. I was a huge fan and a big recruiter of Sue to join the board because of her experience at Cisco, 17 years being chief marketing officer there, as well as just this transition from private to public. It's a thing. Sid and Paul and others need to sort of figure out how to do this. We're giving them a lot of support. We've gotten them consultants. They're doing sort of the financial conference circuit where they get to do a 20-minute presentation and then do a Q&A, so they're getting used to this process of being public. Sue in particular has taken companies public or been on the board of companies that went public with first-time technical founders and early, sometimes first-time CFOs as well. And so just that experience and knowledge is gold. And so we're very happy to have Sue on the board. Thank you very much for joining us. We're in the process of transforming the board from investor types like me to independents like Sue. So you'll see more new board members come on, and there will be some level of overlap with investors and then independents. And then as we become a full public company and after going IPO, it should transition almost completely to independent directors. And so people like Sue are great to have on the board, and thank you for joining us early. We really appreciate it. I've been through many IPOs. I've sat on lots of boards. It's sort of, if people have had children, it's one of those things where you don't really get to turn back. Some people have tried it by going private. That can be troublesome as well, although Dell did a good job going private and coming public again. But it is one of those things where you really got to be ready. So if you've had kids before, my advice to people when they're just about to is you better be 150% ready to have kids, because there's no turning back. Going public sort of feels like that as well. Be ready. Be confident in your business. Know what your role is. We're already well set up for this with the way that we document everything, because systems, policies, procedures, all those things count. One drawback I will kind of share with you, as you may have seen with Lyft going down 11% yesterday because of the strike, you're not in as much control of your own sort of destiny and stock price as you may feel like you are now. So we just have to watch out for that, and that's something especially for Sid and Paul to be thinking about, because those things can be very frustrating when everything's going great inside and then somehow there's this external influence which crushes your stock price, at least for a little bit. So I had to throw a con in there, Mike.
I appreciate it. Todd mentioned that this is it's not an endpoint, it's a milestone along the journey, and there's going to be investors who are considering investing at the point of IPO, but also investing after an IPO. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what investors look for in public investments.
Let Sue start, yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about companies' market valuation or their market cap, when you look at it, it's really a reflection about what the investors think the company will do in the future. It's not really looking at the past or even the current, it's saying what are the prospects for the future. So when I think about what investors are going to look at when they look at GitLab, it's probably very similar to what I looked at when I had the opportunity to talk with folks about the company, both customers, partners, obviously the executives here. And that's number one, is there a huge market opportunity? Is there a great product market fit in terms of what we have to offer into the market? Do the customers love it? Do we have a competitive advantage that we can sustain in some way? And then another critically important thing is the integrity of the leadership team and the culture that they establish. And I have to say that was one of the most important, just really wonderful points about this organization, is not only the high integrity of all the execs I had a chance to speak with and reference outside, but also just this culture about how do we make this an unbelievable place for our employees to work, and then how do we build a community with our customers and our partners so that we can all engage together and sort of break this barrier of remote work. How do we do it in a way that's fundamentally different and unique? And so when you put all of those aspects together, I think when investors are going to see what the potential is, and then they're going to say, is the company performing? Are they delivering on the expectations that they're setting so I can continue to believe in that future?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there are going to be new investors, just like when I made the investment, are looking at the potential of this business. And at the time when we made the investment in Sid and GitLab, it was very tiny at the time, but it was absolutely a huge market opportunity, not much competition, and the right business model. The open source business model was the right business model. And I was not a giant fan of all remote. I will go on record of saying that. Nor every single summit every 9 months, but I'm here for the first time and avoided the others, but now I feel bad about that. So, but
he's going to be a convert by the end of today.
I'm a convert, yeah, that's right. But listen, I think the investors are going to look at the same thing that we looked at, and it really is the market opportunity, and you guys have just boundless market opportunity. You're going to have more competition, which is good. Investors are looking for how to compare us against other potential players in the market, but we've got a great starting point and just a giant market opportunity without too much competition. It's a good place to be from an investor's perspective.
Thank you. And they give us a little timer down here to remind us how little time was actually allocated to this topic. As that winds down, I would like to...
Maybe more time next year.
More time next year. And also just as a note, on Monday we have several UGCs that are going to expand on this topic, run by me, Sid, and Paul. But I thought that maybe the two of you could give a little bit of guidance about, one, what the role everyone in this room needs to play as we move towards becoming a public company, and any advice or suggested focus as we go through this progression toward and beyond that milestone.
Yeah. Well, what I'd say is that, we talk a lot about, we've talked a little bit about visibility and awareness, and I know that that's at the top of the list for you and Todd in terms of helping us to grow the business. And one of the things that really draws customers to any company, but especially this company, is the brand. And each one of us in this room are brand ambassadors, because it's not, what you see on the website or whatever. It's really about the interaction that customers, investors, et cetera, have with each one of us in this room. And that truly gives them the sense of what the company is all about and whether they think it has a good prospect of being successful. So I would just encourage all of us to continue along that path and understand that important role. I also would say that once a company is public, it's a little hard at the beginning to not live and die by the stock price. And we had a joke with one company I'm involved in that we're like, the better the news is that we report in our quarterly earnings, the farther the stock goes down. It's just no correlation whatsoever. So it is one of those things where, again, it is an important reflection about how investors think your future is going to look, but on a day-to-day basis, I always believe in sort of sticking to your knitting and doing what you do well, and all of those ups and downs in the market will work themselves out.
Well said.
Yeah, so just in terms of what it might mean to you guys, we have a very global company, and so I think this will be an interesting experiment for all of us as to kind of how people feel about being public as a Delaware-based company here. So I'm curious to sort of see how people react. I'm glad I'm here because my sense is that this is a super happy place. I mean, everybody was very welcoming. All the conversations just seemed genuine and happy. And so as brand ambassadors, as Sue says, I think you guys are in a great position. You have the right DNA and you have the right attitude, and that actually goes a long way because investors are always kind of looking for what potential kind of aspects of greatness are inside the company. And it's all of you guys for sure. I mean, it actually is you guys helping to get us to that point and take us beyond there. So I'd say enjoy the ride. It's a lot of fun. Don't spend too much time on the stock price, and just keep satisfying your customers, building great products. That's what lasts forever. So this will be a milestone, and I don't think there is any turning back, so it'll be interesting to see what the other side looks like, but keep satisfying customers and building great products. For those of you who raised your hand as 50% new in this company, next year you'll see the next 50% raise their hand. And then when we go public, you will have been here pre-IPO, at least a year according to Sid's date. So that's exciting to be able to say I was here pre-IPO. So you guys should all look forward to that.
Great. Thank you both for sharing your insight, not only today, but also for the ongoing stewardship of GitLab and support for everyone in this room. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. So thanks, team. And we do have a really supportive board. And actually, they're buying into this all-remote concept. We had our first all-remote board meeting, I guess it was last month, and we're thinking maybe we could have the first all-remote roadshow for an IPO, and then would you call it a roadshow, or would you call it a remote show? I don't know. We are basically done here, and so I am excited that you spent the time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your attention. Couple reminders, upcoming next is lunch, and then we're going to walk to the park for GitLab Fest. And the team photo will be at 2 o'clock sharp. So make sure you're in your t-shirt and make sure you're in the right spot for the team photo. And remember to have your badge, because that's required for entrance into anything that you're doing here at Contribute. And one last thing, we talked about security a little earlier on. And we have a little gift for you as you're leaving. So the crew's over there, going to hand that out. How many of you have used YubiKeys before? Awesome. So you will be getting a GitLab branded YubiKey on the way out. It makes your life easier. It's a factor for two-factor authentication, and it makes things so much easier. There's going to be a place where you can go on Saturday to help get set up with your computer for a YubiKey. And that's all. So thank you very much for coming to Contribute, and have a great time.